Today we're going to be talking about the new Jack Mason Ellum dress watch. For those of you who have been with us for several years, you probably remember the first generation Elum we had in the catalog. The first Elum was a 40mm minimalistic dress watch that was very much inspired by the Mad Men era from a style standpoint, and it was powered by a small second quartz movement. The design of the Elum had several great attributes, including the pie pan dial, often seen in many vintage watches from the 50s and 60s. The case design was beautiful as it mimicked a smooth pebble as the line transitioned smoothly from top to bottom in one continuous flow. The domed crystal flowed flawlessly into the bezel, then to the mid-case, and eventually transitioned into a flush case back, making the overall design minimalist and non-intrusive. For the new Elum, we took everything we loved about the first gen and made it better. For a detailed look at each part of the design and the why, I encourage you to watch our video linked below, where I describe everything you need to know that went behind the design of the new Elum. In that video, you get to tune in to my thought process and understand the story of the Elum. But for the purposes of this video, which is our own review and our own take of the watch, let's get right into the specs. The all-new Elum comes in at 38mm in case diameter with a 45mm lug-to-lug dimension, making this watch versatile across most wrist sizes. The thickness comes in only at 9mm, but to be honest, wears even slimmer than that as the case sits into your wrist. The crystal is sapphire and has a very subtle box design to it as a nod to vintage watches, but also has a purpose to that design decision, which we will get into later. The movement selection here is a massive upgrade from the previously modest Japanese quartz. Inside the Ellum sits a Sellita SW210 Manual Wind movement that's visible through the exhibition case back. We certainly didn't fall short on the finishing as we decided upon the fully decorated main plate and bridge plate topped off with blue screws. A good dress watch is only as good as its leather strap. For the Elum, we sourced a beautiful European Epsom leather. Epsom leather is usually found in luxury designer handbags like Hermes, and it is used for its ability to be durable and soft at the same time. The moment you wrap the leather strap around your wrist, you're able to understand how soft it is right out of the box. We lined the strap with Alcantara leather on the back for its soft feel on the skin and its moisture wicking properties. Alcantara is often used in luxury sports cars interiors for its appeal and performance attributes. Let's talk a little about some key details about the Elum. The first thing to address is the linen dial. The linen dial is the star of the show with the Elum. As with any watch, I believe 90% of the attraction and what draws you in is the dial. That first read, first impression that your eyes have on the watch is crucial when it comes to a minimalistic watch, which is why we decided on featuring a linen dial on the Elum. The most important detail I was looking for was the pattern to be completely randomized and look organic. So what we ended up doing was going with a hydraulic stamping method that would achieve clear layers of depth. We took the tool and machined a bunch of lines of various weights, distances, and depth, virtually creating a pattern on an X, Y, and Z axis. When you couple that with a high-powered hydraulic stamping machine, the result is exactly what we were looking for. You have to observe the texture under a loupe or macro lens to fully appreciate what's happening. You'll notice all the different line weights and can actually see the lines going over and under each other like a woven pattern. It's really remarkable. With the satin dial finish on the surface, the depth of the texture changes in the light. The Ellum dial is also curved down around the perimeter, which creates a soft inner glow around the edge that reflects a little light from the inner case wall. Without this, the dial would appear a bit flat even with the texture. As much as I wanted to create a deep pie pan type shape like you're used to seeing in vintage watches, the movement underneath is a bit too large for that effect. Nonetheless, knowing that the dial has a shape to it adds to the romance and art behind the Elum. In addition to the curvature of the dial, the hands, specifically the second and minute hand, are also curved at the tips. The reason why is to follow the curvature of the dial as well as the underside of the boxed crystal. This curvature layering effect allows for a much slimmer case profile. The indices on the original Elum were very minimal, but had a shape to it that was only noticeable under a loupe. So what we did this time around was added more noticeable visual appeal by designing a slightly wider set and adding more facets to the overall shape so that the light danced ever so subtly across the surface. The indices are delicate as it can easily overpower a dial, so there was a lot of consideration in getting the proportions just right with the length, width, and finishing. I like to view the space underneath the crystal and on the dial surface as kind of like interior design. The indices are like little pieces of furniture that occupy the room, and just like in a real room, it takes a lot of consideration to get the right size and style to create a sound and balanced spatial layout. Perhaps the most notable update to the Ellum is the Sellita SW210 Manual Wind movement that sits inside the watch. There was a lot of deliberation between a self-winding automatic movement and manual wind. And the ultimate reason why we landed on the SW210 was more about the experience than the performance. We wanted things to slow down when it came down to the Ellum. There is almost a forced interaction and relationship to form with a manual wind watch. Those 15 seconds it takes to wind the watch is a short moment to appreciate the watch and perhaps discover something new each time you look at it. So you might be wondering, guys, why a dress watch? They aren't as popular and just too niche of a watch type, especially in the microbrand space. My answer to that would be that's exactly why we made it. Designing a great watch in general has its challenges, but designing a dress watch specifically is some of the most challenging in my opinion. The fact is that it's not a spec-heavy watch, so all you're left with is creating something that's truly beautiful to look at and comfortable to wear. What we wanted to layer on top of that is to build an aspirational story. Who wouldn't want to channel their inner Don Draper and imagine for a moment you're calling the shots in your office off Madison Avenue? This new iteration of the Ellum embodies everything that Jack Mason is, a design-focused watch brand that is about raising the bar on every level. Putting thought and consideration into the wearing experience and the relationship that's formed with your watch is something that was on the forefront of our minds during the development of the Ellum. We would love to hear your thoughts, so please don't hesitate to comment below. Also, please don't forget to subscribe and stay up to date on all the new exciting things happening with the brand. Also, please follow us on Instagram and join our Facebook group, where we frequently post exclusive content, as well as surveys to make sure we stay connected with you. Thanks, y'all.